Right, g'day everyone, and welcome to episode two of Building the Church as a Family. And I'm here with Gary, author of the book, and obviously pastor at Friends First, where we have been trying to flesh this out over the last few years.
Yeah, a while now, isn't it?
It has been, yeah. So we've got, so I think our community obviously looks really different. We touched on a few things in the intro in episode one. But the first chapter that we wanted to look at this week is obviously free choice. And you actually open up the chapter by mentioning Ravi Zacharias. And I know you got a little bit of flack for that, but also a little bit of praise for it as well. So, but maybe do you want to just kick us off with, what did Ravi teach you?
Yeah, well, can I...
Backtrack.
Backtrack.
Sure, straight away.
yeah, well, because Ravi,
Yeah.
So that thing where I got a bit of flack for putting his name in the book and no, you must distance yourself and all that. I just don't think that's how life works. You know, I don't think we have to distance ourselves from David because King David did what he did, or everybody else for that matter. So, so that's why he's in the book. Obviously, I wish Ravi had lived or had fleshed out his what he spoke on. And I think that's life, right? So we can have revelation from God and then not necessarily live it to the full measure that we possibly should or could. So Ravi, the thing that Ravi did really well was he would, I guess, connect with university students a lot. Well, the stuff I watched a lot of. And, going back, actually way back, I read quite a few of his books on culture and stuff like that. So it kind of was shaping me. I actually really enjoyed the way he thought and the way he presented stuff. And so in the book, I talk about this one particular clip that I watched on Ravi at a university with a bunch of students. And they were saying, why does all this stuff happen in the world? You know, all this bad stuff. Yeah. If God's in charge, well, then surely, this wouldn't happen. And so he kind of put the guy into the corner, which Ravi was always good at doing, where the guy couldn't get out, and really was saying, kind of agreeing with the guy at one level, but then saying to him, well, and he brought up this thing of free choice, because the truth is, if God's in charge, I guess the greater narrative is that God's in charge, but he's not in control.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be a narrative. God's in charge, but he's not in control. So God is in charge of everything, but he's not in control of everything. Which, what it means is a bit like you give, Jed your car keys. So you're in charge because it's your car and your car keys, but Jed's now driving the car, so you're not in control, And so God gives us the world, but we are doing things, we're making choices. And so the choices we're making or doing things, there's a consequence to it. So the thing that Ravi presented really well, and he's done it many times, is because we're relational beings in the image of God, so we image God into the world. To be like God, we have to have free choice. Yeah. So, you can't even have true love if you don't have free choice. My wife Debbie, I can't force her to marry me. I can't force her to love me. She has to have free choice in the matter. Otherwise, it wouldn't be love. Yeah. And it's the same with us and God. So if we don't have free choice, that's the most powerful thing. So we, Adam chose. Well, God gives us options. Adam chose to do something that God told him not to. That's the very foundation of what relationships are. Otherwise, the alternative is you're a robot, which I guess is some of the Calvinistic concepts that come through, predestination concepts, that really doesn't matter what you choose. Ultimately, your fate is kind of set. Yeah. Because you're a robot,
Yeah. And so, I've always found that concept a bit strange. Like, I remember early on in my Christian walk, and I used to wear Christian t-shirts. No. But I remember asking God every day, what should I wear? And eventually I sort of felt like God saying, I don't care.
Didn't you say,
hey, I'm your father, not your mother? You get to choose. But it's like that, I think, in Christian maturity, is that, yes, he will tell you what to do. But over time, I think that begins to develop. He doesn't want to have to tell you to do something every single time. He wants you to actually learn and grow up. And as you said, you get you get the choice. How do you respond to his love? Is that sort of where, I guess, with the whole free choice thing, I guess, is that one of the key characteristics? Is if it's love, it needs to be chosen or freely.
Well,
how does that work?
So you can't have a relationship, like true relationship, unless connected relationship, covenantal relationship. You can't get there unless you have free choice. What I mean by that is if I'm coerced into something or hooked into something as in a relationship sense, then my free choice has been put aside. I'm not there out of my own free will, which means that what I'm doing is contractual by nature.
Yeah,
it's I'm doing it out of fear, or I'm doing it out of I might lose something, or I'm making that decision out of what I might gain. There's a number of factors in there. Whereas free choice, I'm choosing to enter in on there's no hooks.
Yeah.
There's nothing. And that's really what kingdom life is about.
So let's flesh that out.
Yeah.
Let's do maybe an example of that free choice.
Yeah.
Versus that free choice that's not contractual, so to speak.
Yeah. Well,
what does it look like in relationships? Is sort of what I'm
getting
getting at.
I mean, look, I think probably the best example, and we see it in Scripture a lot. We're the bride of Christ, and so the best example really is a marriage. Okay, so in a marriage environment or marriage relationship, obviously, so for instance, yourself and Sarah, she's not forced to marry you. You asked her, would you, and she has to think about it whether she'd respond or not.
Yeah.
But not only that, it's not just that one moment. She's continually deciding. She's continually choosing by free choice, and you find, certainly helping people with marriage, and we've done a fair bit of that over the years. A lot of the problems come in where one of the individuals is not free to choose, right? So then you don't really have love. You have, I guess, like a masked kind of relationship. So either the person is shameful in some way, so they're doing things out of their shame, or they are fake. Shame, I guess, would be, but they're masked up. So you're not getting, so intimacy is eroded because you're relating to somebody in a different way. They don't really want to be with you. Let's say in an area, I'm talking marriage.
Yeah.
Well, not in all the marriage, but in certain circumstances, they don't want to be with you, but they're with you because they feel they have to.
Yeah, and so they could feel they have to because this is my religion. We don't get divorced, or this is like in our family. No one's ever been divorced before, and I'm not going to be the first one. And so
it can be all of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's right. And so what happens actually is when because it leads to free choice leads to a whole bunch of things. It's like a foundation. If you start to understand it, that you can't have true love unless I'm free to choose.
Yeah.
So then like the conversation we had earlier upstairs, right?
Yeah.
It's like you honor each other's free choice, but then there's invitation.
Yeah.
And so, I was talking to Paul Young about this. Paul Young, the author of The Shack. So Paul was like, because he looked at this book and he's got a little word in the back there, but he said to me, not everybody has free choice is in environments that are unhealthy. So I understand that. It's good to address that. What I mean by that is, we can have free choice is completely eroded for us, where we forced, as you just said, we shouldn't. There's parameters, all the things put on us, placed on us that erode it, which means we can't operate that. Or, which is even a bigger question, which we address in the next chapter, is your culture, the way you process life, the way you grew up, the way you think, the way your autopilot, parts of you, your inner world, it's not conducive to actually understanding what covenantal life is, or what free choice really is. It's just you never knew that you had a choice. So you've got a lot of cultures like that, actually.
Yeah. So obviously we've just spoken about how free choice actually makes a huge difference in your relationships.
Yes.
So you want to honor other people's free choice because you want them. I guess the ultimate goal is connection or relationship, love. then they need to be free to choose.
Yes.
So we just spoke about that in terms of, I guess, relationships, like a husband and wife. What does this look like for the church then? To have, like, how do you build a church that values free choice? What does that look like?
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question because, again, it's culture.
Yeah.
So if you've got a Pentecostal culture, got a Salvation Army, I'm talking about different streams within Christendom, you're going to approach these things differently. So, I grew up, you had to go to church. So it wasn't even like, there's no such thing as free choice. I went to boarding school, you go to church, it happens on the weekend. And so, then I got born again, I guess we used that term, when I was 17, and it was like, well, it wasn't that, you had to go to church. It was like you could lose your salvation, if you didn't do these things, right? So then again, your free choice is eroded, and so there's these complex things going on within you that they're not truths, but you've absorbed them as truths in your culture, and now you're trying to process this thing. So what I learnt over time was that true covenantal relationship, or true vulnerability, or true allowing yourself to be fully seen, so that you have for the sole purpose of a loving relationship. So I can see fully you, therefore you can be fully loved by me, fully known by me, in the context of you and I. That's not possible unless you're honouring free choice. So the journey into that is to allow someone to talk, to ask questions without imposing your perspective, and allowing to draw that out where they showing themselves. So we can use these words, free choice, but there's actually, there's other factors that go on in this process as well.
It almost feels like the opposite to this free choice is a bit of that manipulation.
Yes.
And it's like, if we're thinking about this in terms of church, because we're talking about building the church as family, you think about stuff that needs to be done at church. And I think you've often said this, that you never want to try and hook someone. And I think that is the temptation for leaders who want to see something done, that they will hook people, that
you make little promises, or you've got little things, and then you hook them that way. Well, parents do it with their kids, right? I mean, look, the thing is this: there's boundaries and foundation, and not everybody gets that, but hopefully when you've been around a while, you get that. It's like you're just going to mess it up for the family if certain things don't happen. And of course, there's administrative things that need to happen in any home. I mean, the dustbins need to put out, the dishes need to be washed and so on. So it's not like, oh, you have free choice not to put the dishes out. It's like that innocent, or the dishes, you've got to wash the dishes or put the dustbin out. We just have chores for our kids, right? I think what happens is when you don't honour free choice in an individual, what will happen is you'll get a false individual. So they'll mask up to belong to the room that they're in. That's the first thing. Secondly, they won't be vulnerable. So the moment you shut down vulnerability, then you're stopping any transformation in the person. Then, I mean, there's a number of things. Also, you will, you get to a space where you just, you're not yourself anymore. You totally, and you're not even, you don't even, so all your desires and your dreams and your things that God's put in your heart are just almost irrelevant. And you get to that place, and you can find, it's interesting looking at even demographics within cultural groups. You normally find that, like, let's just call it, in the Australian context, the yobbo kind of groups. they seriously, they're all like, yeah, mate, all like together, but there's no individual expressing their thing, because the moment you do that, you get cut down.
It's interesting. One of my friends, Danielle Strickland, she has this saying that fear leads to bondage.
Yes.
And she preaches on it all the time. But just the idea that when you're scared, it'll either lead to your own bondage or someone else's.
Yeah.
And so as a leader, I can see how, I'm scared. If I don't get someone to run the kids ministry, if I don't get someone to worship lead or do this or do that, whatever needs to be happen, then, I get worried about the outcome. And so I will cross the line and not honour other people's free will.
Well, look, I've been part of a few mega church kind of setups in my lifetime, and I'm not against mega church. I'm just telling you the facts. The facts are, in those movements, there's lots of bodies buried in that movement.
Yeah,
lots of them.
Yeah,
and I mean, I've got, as you get older, you got friends that are just because they what was on their hearts never got heard. They never got valued. And that all comes down to this free choice. When you're as a leader looking at somebody, trying to hear the person's heart, obviously there's tasks to do. Now, of course, we know that, right? Because you got things you got to do. But if it's all task, then you've forgotten what the purpose was.
Yeah.
So the task and the thing of doing church, the methodology of how you do church, really should be the scaffold. The scaffolding you're wrapping around the real purpose. The real purpose is to get an individual to be seen. They start to be free, and Jesus sets them free, and they start to flourish. And they're only going to do that through being heard and making mistakes and all those things. But they're doing it by exercising their free choice, exercising their free will, and being honoured. You know what it's like when kids tell you a joke that you think, oh yeah, heard this 5 times. You laugh, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to give them, dignity, and they're feeling that they're worth something. And that's at the same time, because as a parent, you know where you're going. Yeah. You got direction. And the same with the church leader leading a community that way. They got direction. They know what they're trying to do. And so, there's administration that needs to happen.
Yeah. And so I guess with this, we know that when people are free, like truly free to be themselves, that's when we see the best version of them.
Yes.
So if
we might not like it though. Yeah. We often think, well, just like tone it down. We don't want to really fully see you yet.
Yeah.
We might not like it, but it's messy at one level. But that's what family should be, right?
Can I just say, Gary, I love that you've just reminded me, because there have been so many times when you've come back from meeting with someone and you say, oh, I was out for lunch with someone the other day, and I just kept pushing their buttons, and then eventually they swore at me and told me what they really thought.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, nice to meet you. Like, it's so good to see, and
that's right.
I guess
I do that a lot.
and it's not that you're trying to rile them up for no reason. You're trying to see what's the reality, because people don't feel free to be themselves. They feel like they have to put on a mask to please you, or to be a Christian or part of the church, or put on this facade that I'm doing great in life. But there's a freedom that comes when we can actually just let our hair down or take the mask off. Yeah,
so you see, when we talk about church as family, which is difficult to understand. It's easy, all conceptually we get it.
Yeah.
I mean, the church is a family. We see it in Scripture, as we said in the first episode. But when we think about how does this work, well, where it works is where you get to be completely you.
Yeah.
And I get to be completely me. And I know that you'll never reject me.
Yeah.
You'll never push me away. And I know that I always belong.
Yeah.
So we had this thing, and we used to talk about it when I was on staff at Stairway. So belong before you believe. So we believe a certain thing, believe the vision statement, the values, and so we all believe. And if you don't believe what I believe, we'll see you later. Well, that doesn't honor free choice, right? So so you get to belong, and you get to know that no matter what, I belong here and I'm loved. Even if I believe completely differently to you, even if I think differently, even if my decisions are not quite. Obviously, the flip side, of course, we need boundaries and all those things. I mean, people always, what about boundaries? And there's got to be some. Well, I get that. I'm not even saying, but the way to freedom is I get to be me.
Yeah.
And that's really how it should be in families. I'm not saying it is like that. A lot of families it isn't, but certainly in your childhood years, I was just say, up to the age of 6, let's just say. I mean, you certainly find kids saying the most amazing things, and they're free. They're not thinking, "Oh, there's consequences to my choices."
No, that's great. And so let's shift on to okay. Well, how does this affect our theology then? Because as you're just talking, you make me think about Jesus and him. He was totally fine with the woman caught in adultery. He was totally fine with hanging out with tax collectors, and he got mocked for all this sort of thing. But and but he loved the person, and it was like he honoured their free choice. We were saying before that, you know, there was times when, you know, he was the 10 lepers and only one comes back. There's a time when, you know, he was talking about eat my blood, you know, eat my body, drink my blood, and like people scatter, or whatever. And then he says, hey, turns to his disciples, are you going to leave too? And they're like, no, where else would we go? But it was like, you're free, like you can go. Like he wasn't trying to.
I think, look, for me, so, you know, I grew up in Central Africa and then South Africa, and then obviously been here for most of my life in Australia. But the culture is Western. So what's the Western culture? There's a goal. There's something we're aiming at, and so we fake it until we make it. Kind of. I certainly, when I was in the business world, it was a bit like I was in marketing, so it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. and so, but what's the goal in what's Jesus's goal? I came to seek and save that which was lost. What was lost? The kingdom. What was the kingdom, or the culture of the kingdom? So there's things. So really, what it, like, forgive them, Father, for they do not know what they're doing. What's happening? Well, you are enemies of God in your own mind. I mean, Paul writes that. Yeah. So, you know, and Jesus alludes to that. Forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. Yeah. So, what's really happening is humanity is malfunctioning. So when someone's malfunctioning, they're not being true to who they've been designed to be. And so when other people are yanking you around, as in you trying to please, so why are you trying to please? You're trying to please to belong with all these different groups, so that because that's what you're longing for, is to find a home. Yeah. So then free choice kind of goes out the window, right? Free choice, not even considering what free choice is. And I find, and this is the conversation I had with Paul Young, that he's saying that's why people don't have free choice. Yeah. So I get it. So it's a bigger conversation, and I know this book is really just
a conversation starter.
I mean, I'm trying to. Yeah. But the thing with free choice is we're trying to find whole people. We're saying yes, we know whilst you malfunctioning, it's okay. We are not trying to yank you and hook you and put you into things that because we're trying to use you as a commodity to build something or do something, which is what businesses do, right? In fact, it's what life does to you. But we want to honor you, which that's what love is. So we're honoring. And you know, years ago in the corporate world, in North Ryde in Sydney, I walked into Microsoft, and we had suits on. I worked for Data General, so we were like, who's this Microsoft? We walked into Microsoft, and everyone was in shorts and t-shirts and thongs, and I was like, what the heck? This is like, and the environment there was a creative environment. And later I learned this because when I was working for Marconi, we kind of tried to shift our culture towards that way. And so it was a creative environment where they wanted to hear the person's, what they felt. Yeah. Because that's how creativity starts, right? So you've got these talented people that are quiet because they're trying to fit in, because that's what malfunction does. It shuts you down. To when you can be a person that's honored, and what you say matters, your choice matters, and so you come alive. So a good example is my wife, Debbie. You want to go there?
Yeah,
just quickly.
Yeah, let's go there.
Because it's really interesting. Because Deb started life as she loved doing art, but she never. This is a child, right? So she someone told her that's stupid. What is that? Yeah. So she, in fact, it was. It's a long story, but anyway. Then she finishes school. She becomes an accountant. Why should she become an accountant? Because I think that's a good idea. I thought that was a good idea for her. I thought, no, you should be an accountant. She said, oh, okay. So she goes to university, 7 years study. It's not like nothing. She does her honours and all that, and she starts, accountant. Well, she's a CFO of a company in Sydney. That's where she ends up making good money, and then ends up running her own practice, and that's what she should do. And it was, probably 10 years ago, we were away with a guy, because I didn't know what I was doing with my life. But most of my life, and I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Kind of that feeling where it's got to be more. It's just unsettled kind of bloke that I am sometimes. And Deb came along with me, and the guy said, "You shouldn't be doing accounting. You should be doing something different." And Gary Morgan, who's the prophetic guy, he said to her, he prophesied over anyway, and it opened up, and Debbie painted a painting, or she painted Jack our little Jack Russell. And I couldn't believe that she could paint that. The detail she captured. And then she started painting and drawing. Like she could do stick figures before then.
Yeah.
And I think when she could give expression to what she really wanted to do with her life, as you know now, we live on a farm. She hates doing accounting.
Yeah.
You think of someone who that's all she did, studied, and she just doesn't do it. And she's doing all she's helping people, and she's got this creative thing. So I think the thing of free choice and understanding it leads you to this amazing freedom. And I think that when people understand why we're trying to build, why this is so important that we give people freedom to choose, because it leads to a whole bunch of healing, and it takes away the malfunctioning side of our hearts. So that makes sense. That's awesome. But it's obviously people touching you all through and encouraging you and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a very you have to be courageous to lead out of that space, like to be a leader, to lead a church, to lead that way just requires so much courage to do that. And really, I think you got to start there. Like, you can't just expect other people to, give you free choice, but you not give them.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, that's been really good. I know we've done our 20 or so minutes now. And I think it's a great conversation starter, and I think that has set us up really well for the next episode, which is the next chapter on kingdom culture. Kingdom culture. But that's been great.
Yeah, thanks, James.
All right, thanks, Gary.
Chat. Yes, you guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you, and well done on making it to the end of this podcast. This book and these podcasts really are conversation starters, so we would love to encourage you to continue the conversation. Here's a couple of ways you can do that. Number one, download your free copy of Building the Church as a Family at friendsfirst.com.au. That's right, completely free at friendsfirst.com.au. The second way, check out the conversation starters in the show notes. Maybe you can go over them with a friend, your spouse, or your home group. And number three, we're going to be uploading an episode for every chapter in the book. So why not like and subscribe so you don't miss out? Okay, that's it for this week. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll meet you again on the next episode.